Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic.
Since love grows within you, so beauty grows. For love is the beauty of the soul street. Augustine. Tsunade beautiful dreams. Tsunade. One of the legendary Sanin. A kunoichi who is known by many names, whether it be the queen of slugs and elixirs, the Haim no Hokage's princess of the Hokage's are the legendary succor. A person known for her skills as a healer, warrior, and as a lady of incomparable beauty that defies her age. Still, despite her stellar accomplishments, she is a woman who has suffered and lost much in her life. However, there was one person who brought her out of her despair. A young man she once called stupid, rude and ugly, but ended up becoming more important to her than her own life. That young man was Uzumaki Naruto. Despite the way she treated him when they first met, he sacrificed everything so that she could live. Though he was seriously injured from fighting the snake that Orochimaru summoned, when he saw Kabuto punching and kicking the beautiful blonde and heard her screams and cries of pain as she laid paralyzed from her hemophobia, it gave him the strength to move, and the strength to protect her with everything he had, and it brought him victory over the snake Sanin's right-hand man. An enemy that Jiraiya said he couldn't beat, an enemy that even the more experienced Shizune couldn't defeat. It was at that moment that something sparked within the older woman. It was a feeling that she hasn't felt for so many years. A feeling that she last felt when Dan died in front of her. That feeling was love, and that emotion snapped her out of her fear and made her move when the spiky blonde coughed up blood and collapsed to the ground in a lifeless heap. The bet she made with him, the position of the Godime Hokage, none of that mattered at that point. What mattered was that Naruto had to live, even if protecting him would cause her own death. She didn't want to see another person she loved die, and after Kabuto cut the blood vessels connecting his heart and his chakra vessels, he nearly did. The beautiful blonde's tears started to fall from her eyes while she healed him, fearing that she would fail like she did back then. She screamed in her mind to him as if by telepathy, "Don't die." Numerous times as her tears continued to fall on him along with the green chakra she pumped into him. Kami answered her prayers, and she knew he would live when he reached out and clutched her necklace. "Told you, I'd win," Naruto said weakly with a warm smile on his face to her before he went unconscious. Tsunade returned that smile joyfully as she took his hand and held it gently, covering it in a chakra glow. She kept her word to her savior and gave him his prize along with her support of his dream of becoming Hokage to him. But in truth, the woman also gave Naruto her heart along with her cherished heirloom. Unfortunately, she knew that the chance of them ever being together in that fashion was a dream that would never come true. But sometimes, even miracles can happen, even if the miracle is just a beautiful dream that lasts for just a moment. After the Sannin battle, even though the legendary succor saved Naruto's life, it took him about a week to completely recover from his wounds. He spent most of that recovery sleeping in a bed. Though Tsunade herself had to recover from her injuries from the battle and from her own healing technique, she made it her priority to stay with Naruto and watch over his recovery. She even forced Jiraiya to pay for an extra room so that she could stay with him and that Shizune could sleep in their old room and not stay with the perverted Sannin. As the female Sannin laid on her bed one night while reading a book in her bathrobe, she sensed Naruto starting to squirm in his sleep, which worried her since he hasn't been conscious since the fight. She got up from her bed and sat next to him. When she looked at his face, she noticed that his eyes were half opened and he was looking at her. Tsunade-chan, Naruto mumbled quietly. The beautiful blonde gasped when he heard Naruto call her that. Normally he would hear her call her old hag or Tsunade-bachan, Granny Tsunade, ever since they met. But he never used that suffix before. After taking a moment to compose herself, Tsunade took the young man's hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. "What wrong, Naruto-kun?" Tsunade asked him gently, even though his eyes were still half opened. Are you okay? He questioned back. Yes, Naruto-kun. I'm fine now, thanks to you. She answered with a warm smile as she rubbed his hand. I'm glad, the blonde ninja said with a small smile as he fell back to sleep. Even now, he was worried about me, the legendary sucker thought to herself as she unconsciously continued to rub his hand tenderly as she held it. It was then that she placed her free hand on her face and noticed that it was heating up into a blush and that her heart was pounding in her chest. What's wrong with me? He's just a kid, and yet I haven't felt this way since Dan was. Her mind drifted off as she looked at his young and handsome face. She started to remember Jiraiya saying how much Naruto was like Naoki. But when she looked at him, she saw both her brother and her former lover in him, and it strangely made her happy. She felt that the young ninja had both of their qualities. Naoki isn't the only one he has a lot in common with. If only I met you while I was still young, Naruto-kun. But that's just a dream. A dream that will never come true. She thought sadly as she let go of his hand. But for some strange reason, the female Sannin didn't head back to her bed just yet. She moved her hand to his blonde hair and started to ruffle it softly. Naruto groans happily and leans his head towards her palm. The older woman smiled and ruffles his hair a little more before returning to her bed. Hey, I should have my head examined. If Jiraiya or Shizune had seen me do that, I wouldn't hear the end of it. Tsunade chuckled inwardly as she walked back to her bed. As she got into bed and turned off the lights, she looked at Naruto's face as the moon shined on it and she beamed, noticing had the look of happiness on his face from her touch still remained as she drifted off to sleep. Sweet dreams, Naruto-kun. Thank you, she whispered before sleep overtook her. Unfortunately for the beautiful blonde, her dreams were far from sweet or peaceful. For in her dream, she saw her old self from over a week ago, when she was willing to abandon Konoha completely and sacrifice Jiraiya and Naruto to revive her loved ones. She started to break into a cold sweat and gripped her covers tightly as she saw what might have been had she gave in to her Agnes. Dream sequence. Well, Tsunade, have you considered my offer? Orochimaru asked his old teammate. Yes, Orochimaru, I accept your offer to heal your arms in exchange for bringing Dan and Naoki back to life. Here are your 2 sacrifices. The female Sannin said coldly as Naruto and Jiraiya laid side by side, unconscious and tied up with ropes. Kukuku, excellent. Now, let us begin. He said with a chuckle. The female Nin walked up to him as green chakra glowed in her hands and covered the snake Sannin's arms until he was able to move them once again. At last, I can move my arms once again. Your last act has been in vain, Sarutobi-sensei. He laughed almost maniacally. I've done my part, Orochimaru. Now fulfill your promise to me. She demanded. As you wish, my old friend, he said with a wicked smile. With his now healed arms, he made quick hand seals and slammed his hands into the ground, making 2 coffins rise up from a dark abyss. Once they fully appeared, the coffins opened and shadow hands came out and grabbed the still unconscious Toad Sannin and his student, dragging them inside. When the 2 of them were in and the doors of the caskets closed, they rose into the air and started to glow in an eerie black chakra. A minute later, blood-curdling screams started to come from them. They were the screams of Naruto and Jiraiya. Tsunade tried to close her eyes and cover her ears to block it out, but it was no use. For their screams hit not only her ears, but her soul. A few minutes passed, and the screams finally stopped. It was then that she knew that they were dead. But it didn't matter to her. If she could see her loved ones again, it was worth the sacrifice. The process is complete, Orochimaru suddenly said as the black chakra covering the coffins dissipated and lowered back down onto the ground. It was then that the coffins started to open slowly. Naoki, Dan, the beautiful blonde shouted as tears of joy fell from her eyes. She started to run towards the coffins, but she suddenly stopped and her eyes widened in pure horror when the tops were completely open. Fully opened, she saw the faces of her brother and former lover, but their decomposed flesh was dull, dirty and gray. Their eyes had no color, no life in them. Naoki's face in particular was scarred and covered in various cuts and bruises, making him look like a barely recognizable patched-up doll. In all truths and aspects, they were like the walking dead. "Naoki, Dan," she said in a whisper, fearing to even touch them. "Nichan, what have you done? How could you betray the people who love you and care about you?" Naoki asked her in an emotionless, gravelly, and unrecognizable voice. "Naoki, Tsunade replied sadly, not knowing what to say. "Look at what your selfishness caused, Tsunade. I thought you loved us. I thought you loved our home." Dan said in an unrecognizable voice as well. I just wanted to touch you both again. To hold you and tell you that I loved you one more time." The female Sanin cried as tears started to fall from her eyes. "How can you love anyone when you sentenced us to death? My dream was the same as theirs. I believed you would help my friends. And I wanted to help you and save you. That's why I worked so hard to win our bet. I really liked you, but you killed me. How could you?" Naruto said as his head appeared and came out of Naoki's chest. "Naruto-kun, I didn't know. I'm so sorry," she sobbed with her voice full of guilt and regret. "It's too late for apologies and regrets, Tsunade. Thanks to you, Konoha will be destroyed. The dreams of the ones you love will disappear into dust, their meanings forever forgotten thanks to your betra." "Y'all," Jiraiya said as his head appeared and came out of Dan's chest. "Jiraiya," she said somberly, "and we're not the only ones who will suffer because of you, Nichan. Look," Naoki said as he pointed behind her. The legendary sucker turned around as she saw Kabuto standing over Shizune, who lied in a pool of her own blood. "Shizune!" The kunoichi screamed in terror. "Tsunade-sama, why did you let this happen? We believed in you," Shizune said, lifting up her head and coughing up blood. A moment later, the female med-nin took her last breath and her head fell back to the ground, signaling that she was dead. "Shizune," Tsunade cried as she fell to the ground on her knees. "You promised to take care and protect my niece. You killed her. You're a murderer and I hate you, Tsunade." Dan said scornfully. "You betrayed our dreams, our home, the people you love, and yourself to make this happen. You're nothing but a traitor. You betrayed us and I hate you, Nichan." Naoki said spitefully. "You're a traitor, Tsunade. I trusted you and I hate you." Jiraiya shouted. "You're a murderer, you old hag. You killed me and I hate you." Naruto bellowed. "What have I done?" Exclamation mark. "I'm so sorry, everyone. Please, please forgive me," Tsunade said as she reached out her arms to them as if asking for forgiveness while her tears blurred her vision. But they didn't move. Their faces were filled with nothing but hatred. "Why are you so sad, old friend? You should be happy that you got your wish," Orochimaru said with an evil laugh. It was then that Tsunade's face changed from sorrow to anger as she heard his voice. "Orochimaru," she shouted as she stood up and started to run at him. But as soon as she pulled her fist back to punch him, a number of kunai hit her back and legs, one of which hit her deeply in her spine. The kunoichi then fell down onto the ground paralyzed as blood came out of her mouth. "To think that you're one of the legendary Sannin, truly pathetic. Well, at least it was easy to kill your assistant thanks to that injury you gave her," Kabuto said with a chuckle as he walked up to her while adjusting his glasses. "I thank you, Tsunade, for healing my arms. I'm glad that we were able to see each other again. But your services are no longer required." The snake Sannin laughed as he pulled out a kunai in each hand, each having a red tag on them. "But just so there are no hard feelings, I'll make sure that your death is quick by allowing the ones you sentenced to death kill you. A fitting end for the legendary sucker." He chuckled as he plunged the weapons with the tags inside them, completely destroying their personalities and turning them into the Sound Leader's slaves. "Naoki, Dan, Jiraiya, Naruto-kun," Tsunade said weakly as the tears mixed in with her blood. "Traitor," Naoki said in a zombie-like voice. "Murderer," Dan said. "You don't deserve to live," Jiraiya said. "I hate you," Naruto said. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Tsunade screamed at the end as her loved ones stood above her with a kunai in their hand, aiming for her heart. When the weapons started to come down, she woke up and screamed. End dream sequence. No. Tsunade screamed as woke up after experiencing the horrible nightmare. Her body was shaking and covered in a cold sweat while her heart felt it was about to leap out of her chest. She has had many nightmares since leaving Konoha, but to her that dream was the worst she experienced in her life. It was then she felt a soft hand touch her shoulder, making her jump in shock. Tsunade-bachan, it's me. The young voice called out in concern. She turned to see Naruto sitting beside her on the side of her bed staring at the kunoichi with a worried look on her face. Naruto-kun, the beautiful blonde whimpered. Are you alright? I heard you talking in your sleep and you suddenly screamed. He said to her. Tsunade looked into his cerulean blue eyes as if she was looking into his soul. She could see the warmth in them, and she felt like she was truly looking at him for the first time. It was then that the dream appeared fresh in the female Sanin's mind once more, making her feel the guilt of what she nearly done. Her face started to scrunch up and tears began to pour out of her beautiful hazel eyes like a raging river. A moment later she started to sob loudly and wrapped her arms around the spiky blonde, burying her face into his young chest. To say that he was surprised over what she just did would be an understatement. Tsunade-bachan, he said in complete shock. I'm so sorry Naruto-kun. Please don't hate me. Please don't hate me, Tsunade shouted hysterically into his chest. Huh, why do you think I would hate you? He asked her softly as he carefully rubbed her back to calm her down. The legendary sucker didn't reply and just increased her embrace on the young man and kept on apologizing saying, please don't hate me, like a mantra. Unfortunately for him, the increase of her embrace was starting to have the side effect of causing him great pain due to her super strength. Tsunade-bachan, you're hurting me, he groaned as his ribs started to grind together. Hearing his voice and sensing his uncomfortable position, she calmed down slightly and pulled away enough to no longer cause him pain while still holding onto him. Sorry Naruto-kun, the beautiful blonde said sadly looking up at him as tears continued to fall from her eyes. It's okay. What's wrong Tsunade-bachan? Why are you crying and apologizing to me? Why do you think I hate you? Naruto asked softly. Tsunade lowered her head for a moment, thinking of a way to explain this to him. She decided to be honest with him and let the cards fall as they may. She told him about the dream she had and what she almost did to him in Jiraiya. So that's why, he said in an even tone after hearing the story as he sat next to her on her bed. Yes, I was weak and acted like such a fool. If it wasn't for you, if I hadn't met you, I very well might have accepted his offer, regardless of the consequences. The female Sanin said in a melancholic voice. I think I understand how you feel, the spiky blonde said with a small smile. What do you mean? She inquired. After our fight, Shizune Nichan came to my room and told me what happened to you. This may sound strange, but I kind of envy you. Even though I have friends, the bonds you had with Nawaki and Dan is something I can only dream about since I've been alone for most of my life, he replied with a hint of sadness at the end. Naruto-kun, Tsunade said while lowering her head. We're very much alike. We both know how it feels to be alone. I always wished that someone would just hold me and tell me everything is going to be alright whenever I was sad or when the villagers and my friends hurt me. If I was in your position and had people like that in my life, I probably would have done the same. The spiky blonde said as he placed a hand on her shoulder. That may be true, but that doesn't excuse what I did and the way I acted to you back when we first met. I'm really sorry for everything I've done to you Naruto-kun, she said while lifting her head and looking at him straight in the eyes. I'm sorry too Tsunade-bachan. I said some things to you I didn't really mean, he said giving her a smile. It's alright Naruto-kun. With the things I said about Sarutobi-sensei and the Yondaime, I deserve to be punched in the face. Tsunade said with a light chuckle causing them both to laugh a minute later. I don't hate you, Tsunade-bachan. I'm glad that you turned that snake down. And, I'm glad that I was able to protect you. Naruto said with a light blush on his face. As soon as the words came out of his mouth, the beautiful blonde started to feel her heart pound and her face heat up like before. I am too, Naruto-kun. I am too, the legendary sucker said in a soft voice as her blush deepened. Naruto-kun, could you close your eyes for a minute? She requested. Okay, he said as he started to close them. Taking a moment to place a hand over her heart, she leaned forward and closed her eyes, giving him a soft and sweet kiss on his forehead. It lasted for less than a minute, but that didn't lessen the feelings behind it. When Naruto felt her lips on his head, his body felt warm and his heart started to soar. To him, it was as if she was kissing him on the lips. It was an experience he never felt before, but hoped that he would feel again. As she pulled away, they both opened their eyes and looked at each other's faces. The look of Naruto's face was of complete astonishment over what she did, while Tsunade had a warm smile on her face. A smile she only gave to someone she truly loved. Tsunade-bachan, why did you? Naruto asked while still recovering from the kiss. Well, a lady is supposed to reward her hero for protecting her and saving her life, right? The beautiful blonde said with a grin and a teasing quality in her voice. Tsunade-bachan, Naruto said, giving her a warm smile. You'll become a fine man, Naruto-kun. And a great Hokage, his fellow blonde said happily. Do you really think so? The spiky blonde asked, beaming from head to toe. I know so. In fact, if I was your age, I'd go out on a date with you. She replied honestly. You're just saying that, he said as he lowered his head slightly. Why do you say that? The legendary sucker questioned with a frown. Because even the girl that I like doesn't even notice me. She just thinks that I'm annoying. The spiky blonde said sadly. Does she know about what's inside you? She asked gently in regards to Kyubi. No, but she gives all her attention to my other teammate even though he treats her badly, while I would do anything for her. She even said that she hated me once. Naruto answered, lowering his head further. Naruto-kun, Tsunade said depressingly. She reached out and took Naruto's hand, giving it a gentle squeeze and rubbing it soothingly. Why don't you tell me more about this girl that you like? She asked. Sure, he said, feeling a little better. Naruto told her about his time on Team 7 and the people on it for the next hour. They ended sitting up on their beds and drinking tea and talking while in their bathrobes. It sounds to me that this Sakura doesn't really consider your feelings. But don't feel too bad about it. It's her loss if she doesn't appreciate what you do for her. Tsunade said. You're right, but it still hurts. Naruto sighed. I know, but you know, Naruto, I really was being honest with you earlier. The beautiful blonde said in a warm voice as she took a sip of her tea. Really? Naruto asked. Yes, no doubt in my mind. You may be a little loud, but you got courage and a big heart. Any girl would be lucky to be with you. She replied truthfully. Thanks, Tsunade-chan. Naruto said, a huge smile on his face causing the grown woman to blush. It was then that his eyes widened and he realized his mistake. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call you that, he said frantically, hoping she wouldn't hit him or flick him on the forehead for using the suffix. She just laughed and raised her hand, shaking her head. Calm down, Naruto-kun. I don't mind you calling me that. Just make sure you only call me that when we're alone like this. I am going to be the Godime Hokage when we get back to Konoha. She told him. Truth be told, she was really happy, and a little embarrassed to hear him call her that. Phew. Thanks, Tsunade-chan, Naruto said in a relieved voice as he wiped the sweat off his brow. Still, to hear you say that, I kind of wish you were my age. He said in a somewhat somber tone. I wish I was too, Naruto-kun. More than you'll ever know. The beautiful blonde thought with an inward bittersweet smile. It's getting late, Naruto-kun, let's get some sleep. She said as she got back into her bed. Yeah, good night, Tsunade-chan, Naruto said as he got back into his bed. Good night Naruto-kun, Tsunade said as she turned off the light. But just when she was about to return to sleep, she got out of bed one more time and went over to Naruto's bed. Naruto-kun, she called to him softly. What's wrong Tsunade-chan? He asked sitting up rubbing his eyes. Tsunade just smiled at him and pulled the young man into a warm hug, wrapping her arms gently around his back while his face was buried in her robe-covered chest. Everything's going to be alright Naruto-kun, she said in a voice that could make even the toughest guy melt. When he heard her words, tears started to sting his eyes and he wrapped his arms around her as best he could. You promise? Naruto asked while choking back a sob. I promise, Tsunade replied with conviction as she increased her embrace. A minute later, he started to cry gently. Even though he knew that he had people that cared for him, it was the first time in his mind that he felt truly loved. Late morning, as the high morning sun shined into Naruto and Tsunade's room, the beautiful blonde woke up with a large yawn. After talking with Naruto, she slept well for the rest of night. As she wiped her eyes, she noticed that the spiky blonde's bed was made and that he was nowhere to be found. He probably went down for breakfast. I guess that means he's feeling better. Tsunade thought cheerfully as she got up off the bed, but just when she was about to wash herself in the bathroom, she noticed that on her small desk was a beautiful yellow flower with pink spots on the inside that had a small card attached to it. What's this? It better not be from that perverted teammate of mine or he'll get a knuckle sandwich for lunch, she said in her mind as she picked up the card and read the words. Tsunade-chan, I talked to Shizune Nichan and Ero Senin, perverted hermit, this morning, and they told me what happened after I was unconscious. So here's your reward from me for protecting me and saving my life. I hope you like it. Thank you for last night. I won't forget your promise to me. The future Rokudaime Hokage, Uzumaki Naruto. After reading the card, Tsunade couldn't help but smile brightly and blush furiously. For the flower that Naruto gave her was an orchid. A yellow orchid that matched the color of her long blonde locks. It was also a flower that Dan used to always give her. You're more thoughtful and sensitive than you look Naruto-kun. You will truly be a fine man. The beautiful blonde said out loud as she put the flower to her nose and enjoyed the fragrance. After washing up, she decided to wear it in her hair like she used to when her former love gave it to her. When she headed downstairs, Naruto, Shizune, Tonton and Jiraiya were waiting for her. Good morning Tsunade-sama, Shizune said greeting her master. Good morning Tsunade-bachan, Naruto greeted as well in his boisterous tone. Good morning everyone, the legendary sucker said as if she was on cloud 9. Wow Tsunade, I haven't seen you this cheerful in years. Jiraiya chuckled. I just feel good today. Especially after a special someone gave me this, she said as she pointed to the flower in her hair. Is that a yellow orchid? My uncle used to give you those. Who gave it to you Tsunade-sama? The black-haired Nin asked curiously. A very handsome and sweet young man, she answered as she walked over and gave Naruto a peck on the cheek causing his face to turn red. So that's what you went to get after breakfast. That was a nice thing to do Naruto-kun. Shizune said happily while Tonton let out an oink in agreement. Yeah Naruto, that was pretty smooth of you. You are truly my student. If you need some pointers on how to get women, just ask. The Toad Sanin said slyly with a perverted giggle as he wrapped a loose arm around Naruto's shoulder. A minute later, he was sent flying courtesy of a trademark super strength punch from a now irritated Sanin. Don't even think about it Jiraiya. It's because of those pointers that I'll never go out with you again. The female Sanin fumed while a vein pulsed on her forehead. Thanks a lot for the flower Naruto-kun. I'll always treasure it, she said as she turned to the young man and gave him her best smile. It was nothing Tsunade-bachan. Do you like it? The spiky blonde stammered nervously. Yes, I love it. It was really thoughtful of you. Thanks again, she replied with a light blush while giving him a warm hug. Naruto simply chuckled and gave her his trademark grin after returning the hug. Tsunade-sama, I saved your breakfast for you to eat on the way back to Konoha. Shizune said as she pulled out a wrapped box. Thanks Shizune. Let's get going. Tsunade said. Right. Time to go home. Naruto said, pumping a fist into the air. The two women nodded and they headed out of the hotel. Did you really go out with Ero Sennin? He asked the female Sannin curiously as they headed to the door. Yes. He asked me out once when we were your age. But it only lasted about 5 minutes when he recited some perverted poetry to me when he picked me up for our date. The legendary sucker chuckled. Figures. And he calls me an idiot. The spiky blonde said. A minute later the three of them were busting out laughing while walking out the door, forgetting about the person they were laughing about as Jiraiya still lay unconscious on the ground. A few days later, while they walked back to Konoha, Tsunade and Naruto talked to each other for the majority of the trip, getting to know each other better. She couldn't believe all that he has gone through when he told him of his life growing up and the things that happened to him, whether they were good or bad. She also kept the flower that the young ninja gave her, which symbolizes beauty, in her hair as well. It made the feelings of love she was starting to develop for him grow even more. But she made no hint of it, since she knew that expressing those feelings would be inappropriate. After finally making it back to Konoha, they went their separate ways so that they could rest, and decided to meet late in the morning so that she could heal his teammates in Rock Lee. After pressing the yellow orchid and meeting with the council, Tsunade and Naruto, along with Shizune, met at Hokage Tower and headed to the hospital. As they walked inside Sasuke's room first, Sakura saw the female Sannin and was amazed by her beauty until Naruto came in. Sakura-chan, there's no need to worry now. I brought someone who'll help heal him. Sasuke will be all right now, Naruto said confidently. Naruto, Sakura said with a surprised look on her face. Meanwhile, the new Hokage looked at the patient in question and noticed 2 daffodils inside a simple glass vase. Those 2 flowers weren't brought here on the same day. Does she come here every day? Tsunade thought to herself. I heard about you from Guy-sensei. Tsunade-sama, please save Sasuke-kun. The pink-haired Kunoichi said in an almost pleading voice as she bowed to her. Sure, just leave it to me, the female Sannin said with a smile. As she went to the head of Sasuke's bed and started to use her psychological healing powers on him, she took a moment to look at Sakura. Her gaze on Sasuke is so intense. It's as if she only sees him and him alone, she said in her mind as the young Kunoichi wiped nervous tears from her eyes. A moment later, the raven-haired Uchiha was healed and he opened his eyes. Sasuke, Naruto said happily. Sasuke-kun, Sakura said as well as her tears started to flow from her eyes. A moment later she went to him and embraced Sasuke with all her might, completely ignoring the teammate by her side. Hey Sasuke, the spiky blonde started to say until he saw Sakura just holding on to Sasuke as if he would disappear if he let go. At that moment, Naruto felt as if he was farther away from Sakura, now more than ever. But what hurt him the most was that he felt that the girl he loved didn't even know that he existed. He lowered his head and with a pained expression covering his visage, he quietly walked out of the room. However, his exit did not go unnoticed by the beautiful blonde. He really does care about her, otherwise he would have said something. Still, she could have at least thanked him, Tsunade thought as she felt the spiky blonde's pain. Hey, come on, you're not done, Naruto said as he stretched out a hand from outside and motioned her to follow him. Even though he was out of the room, she could hear the sadness in his voice. I'm coming, Naruto-kun. Let's go, Shizune, the legendary sucker said with a heavy sigh as they walked out of the room. But before she left, a voice behind her started to speak. Tsunade-sama, Sakura called out to her in a hoarse voice after wiping away her tears. What is it? The beautiful blonde asked with a hint of annoyance in her voice as she had her back turned to her. Thank you for healing Sasuke-kun, the pink-haired kunoichi replied. Normally, Tsunade would appreciate the praise. But appreciation was not on the Sanin's mind at that moment after she saw the look on Naruto's face. She turned to the young kunoichi and gave her an angry glare, causing Sakura to flinch and let out a small gasp. Don't thank me. The one you should thank just left. Not that you care, Tsunade growled in a low voice as she left the room, leaving a confused Sakura. As they walked down the hospital corridor, not a word was said between the three of them. Naruto was up front with his head down slightly, his hands in his pockets and his shoulders sagged. It didn't take her medical knowledge to figure out he was still hurt from what happened. The female Sanin frowned as she watched him, wishing that she could ease his pain of a broken heart. Hoping to make him feel a little better, she walked up to him and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Naruto lifted his head to see the Godime giving him a sad smile. I'm sorry Naruto-kun, Tsunade said softly so that only he could hear her. Thanks Tsunade-chan, Naruto whispered while trying to force a grin. Are you going to be okay? She asked with concern. I will be, he replied as he started to walk ahead of them again. Naruto-kun, the Godime Hokage thought with a melancholic look on her face. She truly wished that she was his age at that moment. She always made sure that her brother and her lover knew that they were important to her. She wanted to comfort him, to kiss him, to fulfill that promise she made that night to him, the vow that everything was going to be alright. But she knew that there was a line she wouldn't and couldn't cross, no matter how much she wanted to. Hang in there Naruto-kun. I will keep my promise to you, somehow. Just remember that there is at least one person who truly cares about you. She said to him in her mind. Several days later, after Sasuke and Kakashi were healed, Team 7 took some time off in order for the raven-haired Uchiha to recuperate from his injuries. At that time, Tsunade was starting to get settled in Konoha after being officially sworn in as the Godime Hawk. Age. The work of getting the village back to working order was difficult and taxing to the female Sanin to say the least. But her thoughts of Naruto always brought a smile to her face, even while doing paperwork, which she despises with a passion. One day, Tsunade and Shizune was at the front desk getting ready to do their normal rounds, but just as they were about to leave, the front doors swung open and coming through them were Sakura and Kakashi holding a blood-soaked Naruto with his orange outfit covered with cuts and gashes. When Tsunade saw the spiky blonde like that, it brought back the memory of her Ototo little brother and how he looked when the ninjas showed her to him after he died. It made her body grow cold, making her shiver slightly. Kakashi, what the hell happened to Naruto? The female Sanin asked angrily after composing herself. I'll explain later Hokage-sama. Naruto is dying and he needs to be treated. Kakashi answered hastily. I understand. Shizune, let's hurry. Tsunade said as she took Naruto from the Jonin and started to run into the treatment room with her longtime friend and assistant. How could this have happened? Whoever did this will pay, she said in her mind as she looked down at him, his necklace covered with blood. After heading into the treatment room, Tsunade quickly removed his clothes and did a quick analysis. Okami, this is bad. There is a rare type of poison in his bloodstream, and it's trying to destroy his immune system. If he isn't operated on quickly to remove the poison, he'll die. She thought to herself in horror. Wasting no time, she pulled out a pad and wrote down the things she needed to save his life. Shizune, get these items on this list for me. Tell Kakashi to come in here and call in 3 of the best med nins you can find. Hurry, the Godime Hokage ordered. Yes Tsunade-sama, Shizune said as she ran out the room. A minute later, the copy ninja came in. Quote,